So you talked a little bit about like the political candidates, and now there's a rise for non-politicians kind of having popularity. So
I'm sorry, I missed that.
non-politicians having popularity in the polls and everything.
Oh, I didn't comment on that fact.
But that's kind of like a rising trend now that non-politicians are getting more popular.
Yeah, it is a fact that the two most popular Republican candidates never ran for office ever.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
But I made no specific mention of that.
Yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
He's a scientist, remember.
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye for 2016. What are your thoughts on this ticket?
Oh. So Bill Nye's a good friend and a recent, now permanent resident of New York City. And so I see him with some frequency. In fact, maybe 8 months ago, he taught me how to tie a bow tie. All right? Still takes me about 15 minutes and him about 15 seconds, but I'm working on my way there. On my website, if you type in search, "if I were president," there's a little ditty that I wrote for the New York Times because I was asked that very question. If I were president, what would I do? And my reply is, I would not be president. If I were president, I would not be president. Because that implies that you can just swap out one leader, put in another, and then everything will be fine. And it does not address the fundamentals of who's doing the voting and what are people thinking who populate the countryside. Back to my earlier point, as an educator, I would much rather educate the electorate so that they can make an informed decision on their own about who they want to vote for. I will never tell anybody who or what to vote for, ever. Okay? I'm not even going to tell you what to think about. You can have whatever belief system you want. I don't care, but you should be informed about the causes and effects of action and inaction and thoughts and non-thoughts about when you vote. Okay, so now let's say we have an educated electorate, a scientifically literate electorate. Doesn't mean everybody becomes a scientist, but you know what science is and how and why it works. Now you vote for who you want. And if you have a scientifically literate electorate voting, then you never have to come afterwards to the candidates they put in office and say, how come you don't know any science? Or how come you think this is true when, in fact, all emergent scientific research says it's not? That conversation would be over with. Because I don't want to have to keep running to Washington every 2 years when 88% of Congress gets swapped out to try to re-educate Congress. When it's the people who are voting for them that matter here in an elective democracy. As long as you have people voting, thinking one thing is true that is not, that is the beginning of the end of an informed democracy. And there's no telling where that country is going to go in the future. Because what we know, as sure as day follows night, is that since the Industrial Revolution and before, innovations in science and technology are the engines of tomorrow's economies. The rest of the world knows that, whether or not we do. And in that world, we would convert a sleepy country into an innovation nation, thus assuring our health, our wealth, and our security. That's what I'm after here.
Okay, wow. So remind us very quickly just how people can see Star Talk. Tell us very quickly so they can get more of you if they want it.
Wait, say what?
Remind everyone how they can see Star Talk.
Oh, yeah, so Star Talk, it actually posts 50 times a year on Sirius XM Radio and on iTunes. And National Geographic Channel, they sort of cherry pick those shows and pick 10. They pick 10 for the fall to put on television. And it's all done up in the Hall of the Universe, of a beautiful set using the real exhibitry of the Rose Center for Earth and Space at the American Museum of Natural History. And that's where, so it comes on Sunday nights at 11. It's at the talk show hour, 11 p.m. And we premiered this past Sunday October 25th, and it goes 10 consecutive weekends. And otherwise, just find it online. You get the audio version of it. But it's more fun seeing the gesticulations of the comedian. And so comedians are very, my co-host is always a comedian who provides a source of levity to whatever is the conversation that unfolds. And often we'll have an in-house academic expert that provide a source of gravity for whatever is unfolding. And I've got the steering wheel of this vessel, and I will dial, these are valves that I control to make sure that Star Talk hits a target balance, weave of science, pop culture, and entertainment that I think is fundamental to achieving the broadest access that people should have to the science that controls our lives.